What's good, Horror Horde? This is your boy Horror Gamer, back with another video for you. And what's today's video, you ask? Well, today is another movie review for you. And what movie am I getting into? This movie I'm about to review is an older movie. It's an older horror movie, and I grew up with this movie. And for me, this movie was fan-freaking-tastic. It was one of my favorites growing up as a kid. And what's the movie I'm talking about? Tales from the Hood. Tales from the Hood is an anthology movie from Spike Lee. It was a Spike Lee joint, or whatever the fuck he calls his movies. Basically, what Tales from the Hood is, it's an anthology series of horror stories from the hood, you know. So before I get into the review, as you all know by now, if you don't know yet, your boy Horror Gamer reviews are always spoilers all day, every day. So if you don't want the movie spoiled for you, first off, if you haven't seen Tales from the Hood yet, where have you been? This movie came out in the early 90s, so if you haven't seen it yet, that's kind of on you. And for two, if you want to watch it before you see this review, pause this, pick it up on Vudu, you know, Amazon, whatever, watch it, and then come on back, and I get you your review. So, with all that being said, with all that shit out of the way, let's get into the fucking review of Tales from the Hood. So basically, this movie starts off, these three gangbangers, you know, they're rolling up to this funeral home, you know, blaring out the music or whatever, because they hear a tip that they call it the shit, which is drugs. You know, there's this tip that this caretaker is has these drugs that he found out back in the alleyway, and they want to get to it and I guess sell it and make profit off it or whatever. So they go to this funeral home, you know, and they're all creeped out and shit, you know, and they ring the doorbell, and the fucking window blind rolls up real quick, and it scares the shit out of him. And the one dude goes to take off, he cracks his fucking head on the sign thing, and the caretaker opens the door, and he's a real weird looking guy, you know what I'm saying? There's a big old gap in his teeth. He has like the Don King white fucking hairdo that's puffed out afro and shit. So they go in here, and this guy's really creepy, you know what I'm saying? He gives the guy ice for his melon, and then you know, he starts walking him around and stuff, and there's different rooms in this funeral parlor or whatever, and each room has like a coffin in it or something, and then each coffin is his own story. So the first story, the guy's name's Clarence, and he was a cop, and well, first they walk up to Clarence's body, because Clarence is dead and he's laid out, you know, in a coffin, and he's saying, no, all stories, you know, this and this. And they start saying, Clarence, you know, in like a weird fucking way. And then Clarence like sits up and opens his eyes. But then it cuts to the first story, which is Clarence was a cop, and he was a rookie. It was his rookie night, and him and his partner are driving around, and they get the backup to veteran officers. Well, these veteran officers pull over this Martin Morehouse, I think his name was. He's a black rights activist, and you know, and he's wanting the crooked cops out of the fucking precinct and shit, and he's actually gone like on a civil war against crooked cops. Well, they pull him over, and they're like really like cursing at him. These cops are being really nasty to the guy, you know what I'm saying? Like, one guy says, you know, you really like giving cops a harder time, you fucking piece of shit. Like, he just being really fucking vulgar and ignorant to this guy. And the guy says, I don't have nothing against good cops. He said, but I'm gonna see scum like you out of the department. But when he says that, before he says all that, you know, they walk up because they're roughing up the guy, and you know, Clarence is like, whoa, guys, what's going on? And then his partner tells him to go to the car and check the ID and shit. So as he's doing this, he says that thing about you piece of shit or whatever, and then once Martin Morehouse says about he's gonna have him run out of the department, the dude fucking puts his head through the window, And Martin Morehouse had enough. He turns around and fucking punches the dude in the face. Now, these 3 cops are white. Okay, Clarence was black. Now, these 3 cops are white, and they beat the shit out of this dude. I mean, they fucking beat him with a nightstick. You know, they beat this dude with like an inch of his life. And then the guy, and then the rookie Clarence, he's in there running the ID and shit, and he sees Martin Morehouse, and he's like, he remembers, oh shit, like he didn't recognize him at first, so he runs out, he's like, what the fuck are you guys doing, blah blah. And I mean, they're beating this fucking dude up. And then so he goes in to stop him and says, you know, this is Martin Morehouse, blah blah blah. And they gets up in that one dude's face like, what the fuck did you do to? And you know, they get ready to fight, and then the cop told him, you know, go to the car, rookie. He said the guy went for fucking the gun, and then he's like, bullshit. So they're driving. They said they were going to get him, the Martin Morehouse, to the hospital. So it cuts to a scene where Clarence is driving with his partner, and he said, you know, he breaks down the rules. You know, you never rat out a fellow police officer, blah blah blah. And he said, yeah, tonight got a little rough. He said, but the fucker went for Strobe's gun, and it was bullshit. You know, they just wanted to beat the shit out of this guy, you know, because of what he was doing. So after he says that, and after the guy says, you know, this is bullshit, they cut to the scene where the 2 other officers are taking Martin Morehouse to the hospital, which basically what they did was they took him to the pier, injected him with drugs, and they told him, he's like, are we going to the hospital? He's like, yeah, we're going to get you patched up. Puts him in the seat of his car and injects him with heroin, like an overdose. And he's like, and then the cop was like, you know what, something, you were right. The cops are dealing drugs out of this precinct. And then they planted drugs in Martin Morehouse's car and everything, and they drove it off the fucking pier into the water. Basically tarnishing this man's name. Everything that this man worked for, they tarnished it with this act, which is bullshit. So I was a little pissed off about that. So basically what happens after that, they fast forwarded a year. Clarence is an alcoholic. He's out of the force. He's sitting there staring in the fucking mirror, drinking whiskey. Then he keeps hearing Martin Morehouse's voice saying, bring them to me, you know, bring them to me. And so he goes to the cemetery where Martin Morehouse is buried, and he calls the police to meet him there, the 3 who were all a part of that night, his rookie night. So they're all there. And he's like, well, what the fuck are we doing out here, Clarence? You know, this, and this. And he said, we're here to celebrate. He's like, celebrate what? And he said, our anniversary. And then he said, I forget what he said, but he pissed Clarence off, and Clarence is like, cut the shit. And the guy's like, shut the fuck up. And they keep going back and forth, cut the shit, shut the fuck up, cut the shit. And then Clarence's old partner is like, okay, if it'll make you happy, we'll go pay our respects to Martin Morehouse. And then the Caleb guy was like, what the fuck are you doing? And then the cop was like, yeah, we all go in, but Clarence doesn't make it back. So they're planning to kill him in the graveyard. So they get up to Martin Morehouse's grave. This dude is an asshole. You know, he's like, you trying to scare us, blah, blah. He's like, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. He said, I'm going to piss on his grave. So he walks up and he takes a piss on Martin Morehouse's grave. Then he gets his buddy to take a piss on the grave. And that's when the fun really starts. Because when his buddy starts taking a piss, fucking Martin Morehouse's hand shoots up out of the ground and grabs him by the dick. And he just starts whamming his head into the fucking the tombstone. And then drags him underneath into the ground. And then a big explosion happens, and Martin Morehouse is standing on top of the tombstone. And the cop is in the casket with his heart ripped out, and Martin Morehouse is looking at the heart. So basically, after this happens, it's about a 5 minutes or so that these 2 cops are running away from Martin Morehouse's zombie corpse or whatever it is. And he keeps showing up every time, a little closer each time. And the guy's like, it's not time to panic, blah, blah, blah. So they're driving, and then they spin out and wreck, and he's like, when would be a good time to panic? And he's like, now, you know. And then they run over Martin Morehouse, and they keep driving. And then they see him again, and they spin out. And then they hear a thump on the roof. And then they're like, what the hell's going on? And then Martin Morehouse rips through the fucking top of the roof and grabs the one cop who hit him with an ice stick and put his head through the window and rips his fucking head off. So the other cop gets out of the car, he starts running and stuff, and he goes into the alleyway, and there's this big graffiti thing, a big graffiti mural of Martin Morehouse, like kind of giving an evil point look. And he's like, I killed him, you know, because he got out of the car and started shooting the car, and the car blew up, and he thought he killed Martin Morehouse because Martin Morehouse was on top of the car and he fell over. So they think he's dead. Yeah, I killed him. He turned around, Martin Morehouse is standing right in his face. Fucking picks him up and is like, doing this weird laugh, and he drops him. And then the guy starts running away, and Martin Morehouse does this kind of like thing with his hand, and these fucking drug needles come up and go into the guy's back, and basically posts him up against the wall, and that's it. You know, he fades into the fucking picture real gross like, and he becomes a part of the mural, and Martin Morehouse is like, welcome to my world, you know what I mean? And then Clarence walks up to Martin Morehouse and is like, are you satisfied, brother? And then Martin Morehouse grabs him by the throat and is like, where were you when I needed you, brother? And threw him on the ground. And when he threw him on the ground, it cut to a scene where Clarence is in a mental institution, straitjacketed. And then it cuts to back to the, and that's the end of that story. Then it cuts back to the funeral home. And it's like, what, for real? And then they start walking, you know, he's telling the story. It's like, hey, man, we don't got time for this. We need to get the shit. And the guy's like, oh, the shit. You know, the caretaker, the shit. So he keeps calling, he's all like laughing, the drugs. And they walk up to this next coffin, and he picks it up, and it's this mutilated body in there, like twisted up and shit. And the caretaker starts another story. And in this story, it's about this kid who starts a new school. His name's Walter. And he's coming to school every day with new bruises, you know what I'm saying? And stuff, and he's being bullied in school, and you know, the teacher's like, Walter, what's going on? You're coming to school with bruises. I'm basically giving you the ad-lib version because that first part kind of took longer because it was like a longer one. So these next few that I'm going to tell you kind of be like kind of condensed. That way I don't make a 9-hour video review. So back to it. So he says, you know, there's a monster in the house, you know, and he showed up after my dad died because my dad died. Because they sat there and they were asking him questions and shit. You know, does your mom do this to you? No. Does your dad? He said, no, my dad died. He's like, well, who does it? Well, the monster who showed up after my dad died. And then there's parts in this story where he's in his room at night, you know, and you hear the door rummaging, you hear the monster like, and you see the monster's hand come up and try to open the door. And then there's a scene where all the kids are outside playing, and Walter's sitting there, and his teacher comes and said, don't you want to go outside? He's like, no. And he's sitting there coloring. He said, well, what are you doing? He said, somebody told me that if I draw a picture of the monster and destroy it, it'll kill him. So he's sitting there, he said, the monster will disappear. He didn't say kill him, he said the monster will disappear. So he's sitting there drawing and stuff. He's drawing pictures of the monster, and then he drew a picture of the one kid who beat him up earlier in the story, his bully. And he's like, you know, I don't think that's how it works, you know, this, and this. So he said, okay, well, you have fun with your pictures and stuff, whatever. And then, so he walks away, and then Walter gets the picture of the boy who bullied him and kind of like crumples it up to throw it away. But when he does, you hear this like god-awful scream. And then they cut to where the boy's being loaded in the back of an ambulance. And the guy said he fell and broke both his arms and legs. And then one teacher's like, well, how do you fall and break both arms and both arms and both legs falling down? He said the boy must have weak bones. So see, there was something to this picture that was like showing that the thing worked. So the teacher decides he wants to go speak to Walter's mom. So he goes over, talks to Walter's mom. And they're sitting there having a conversation, and he says, you know, he says there's a monster. Well, she calls to him and says, Walter, why are you telling this man these stories, yada, yada, there's no monster, blah, blah, blah. And so then you hear a car pull up, and she's like, go to your room. And then she looks at the teacher and says, don't say anything. Just keep quiet. And then the guy walks in, He's like, what the hell? Why didn't you get the door? You heard me knocking. And he looks at the guy. He's like, who the hell is this? I guess this is the mom's boyfriend, new boyfriend, or whatever. And, you know, they were saying, well, it's his teacher. He's just dropping off homework. And then the teacher goes and says, oh, well, now that you ask, you know, there's certain things that Walter's having trouble with at school. So they're sitting at the table, and he's showing them these pictures that Walter drew and said about, you know, how he feels like he has to kill the monster, you know, and he really believes it. And then the mom's boyfriend's looking at it, and he's like, I'll talk to him. Right off the bat, when you first meet this guy, you feel he's sketchy as shit. Okay? So he's like, okay, you'll talk to him. And then the guy looks up and says, I will talk to him. Like that, just like that. And then he tells his girlfriend, I guess, or whatever, Walter's mom, to escort him to the door. And he's like, well, thanks for the tea, because she poured him tea. So teacher's leaving, walking out to his car and stuff. And the guy starts rolling up his sleeve. He walks up to Walter's room, and you hear the monster behind the door. And he opens the door, and you see the shadow of this monster standing there. And then he walks up, he's like, Walter, you little motherfucker. And he walks up, and it's the mom's boyfriend, man. He's like, you trying to draw pictures to kill me? You think that's funny? Drawing people to look like a monster? And here he has a tattoo of monster on his arm. And he's sitting there, he's beating the shit out of Walter. Like, I mean, he hitting him with a belt and shit. And then the mom comes up, and he punches the mom in the face and starts beating her with the fucking belt. Well, at this time, the fucking teacher hears the screams and looks up and sees the shadow of this guy just laying into this woman and her son. So he runs in. They're fighting in the kitchen. He's beating the fuck out of both of them. The teacher comes and fucking tackles him. Because Walter ran downstairs and ran into the kitchen. So he's right behind him. He's like, I'm gonna get you, little motherfucker. Jumps over the steps and stuff. And then the teacher's knocking on the door, and the mom opens the door. And she's like, he's gonna kill him. So he runs in and he starts going after the guy. Well, for some reason, the teacher couldn't fucking fight for shit. I mean, he got his ass kicked. So, I mean, this dude's just laying waste. He's beating the shit out of Walter. He's fucking hitting his mom and shit. And then Walter sees the picture, because the guy flipped the table and there's a picture on the ground. And he punches the mom, and the mom grabs a frying pan. He's getting ready to wreck this dude with this frying pan. I'm talking about nighty-night. And then Walter fucking, he stops her, hits her again, and then he's like, you trying to hit me, bitch, with the pan? And Walter bends the arm of the pitcher, and the guy's arm goes crunch. And then he starts spinning the pitcher around the guy, starting to spin and shit. And all his bones are breaking. And he crunches him in. And the guy's laying there in like a puddle of his own body. He's just, he's like, shit ain't over, bitch. He's still like, this guy's still talking shit. And he's like, done. Like, and she's like, oh, I think it is. And fucking stomps on the pitcher. And you see blood, I guess, shoot out the guy's mouth. And then they pick the pitcher up and burn it. And he starts burning, you know, catches on fire, and he just starts burning. And then they fade out into the casket at the funeral home, and that's where, you know, that was the fucking mangled up body in the casket. And they're like, oh man, we can't. And then the guy's like, we can't keep doing this shit, man. You need to get us the shit. And then a fucking doll falls. And then the next story, he's like, sometimes dolls can be the waypoint for the lost souls. So the next, and it goes right into the next one. It's a 4 anthology story here, so goes into the next one, and it's about a governor, like a racist governor who lives in this plantation that's haunted by the souls of slaves who were killed. And it was a story of an old voodoo woman who crafted these dolls so the souls of the dead could have somewhere to go. And their supposed stories are scattered all over the house. Well, you know, everybody wants this governor out here, and him and his image consultant are sitting in the house, and everybody's just, get out, you know, they want reparations, this, and this. And so they're just ignoring it. Him and his image consultant sitting there trying to come up with something to say to the media, and the image consultant is like pretending to be him. So he's walking backwards, telling him how he should talk. And he falls down the fucking steps, breaks his neck. So you cut to the funeral. The guy's there at the funeral, and the image consultant's funeral, and he gets into the car, and they're driving, and he looks and he notices there's a little doll sitting in the car. And he asks the guy, who the hell did you let in this car? And the guy's like, I let nobody in here, you know what I mean? So they're driving, and he throws it out the window at the whatever. So he's home later that night, and he hears little footsteps, and he sees the doll he threw out. He's like, "Are you kidding me?" He's like, "You're gonna get no reparations," and fucking throws shit at him. And then the thing starts swinging from the lamp and bites him in the neck. And he throws it, and he knocks it out, I guess, because he hits it with a flag and it's laying there. And they use a lot of the N-word in this one. In this particular story, they use a lot of the N-word. I'm not going to use the N-word because that's not your boy. So he pins him up to the dartboard and shoots him with a double-barrel shotgun. Well, what he doesn't know that there's a certain in his office there's this painting of the old voodoo woman and all the dolls she made. And he notices in her hand that the doll was missing. Like, it's just the outline, because she's holding a doll in the picture and there's just a white outline. And it was the doll who attacked him. So he comes back. He's like, not even the works of a voodoo bitch can, take care of a double barrel shotgun. And then he stops and he notices there's more missing. And so he locks himself out. I guess in case they jump out of the painting, he keeps them in there, and he goes around. The guy, I think, is putting his head back on, and he starts chasing him. He's like, oh shit, because he can't. For some reason, he became Doppler and couldn't load the fucking gun, So he starts running back into the room where the painting is, and he fucking locks the door, and you can hear the thing like hitting the door. He backs up, and then this time he looks over in the painting, all the dolls are gone. It's just little white outlines of all the dolls. And then he's like, what the? He looks over because he hears noises, and all the dolls are standing there just staring at him, ready to attack. And then the one who he locked out somehow manages to get in there and leads the charge, you know what I'm saying? And they all attack him and just bite him and eat him like zombies. And then the voodoo woman in the painting disappears from the painting, and then she ends up in the middle of the room, rocking back and forth in the rocking chair, holding the doll while the other dolls eat the guy. So that was a pretty good one. That was probably my favorite one because it was just spooky. And then the least favorite one is probably the one I'm getting ready to tell you now. It was about this guy, his name was Crazy K, okay? He murders people and stuff, Well, he's driving, listening to his gangster rap, and he sees somebody who I guess owes him money. So he pulls up on the guy and just blasts this guy. Well, he blasts him in front of the guy's friend's house. So the guys come out and they start shooting Crazy K, and they shot him, and they're sitting there talking shit. And the cops end up coming and shooting these guys and killing them. And he's like, oh great, saved by the fucking cops. So it goes over, I guess a few months later, he's in a cell, he's doing life in prison for murder. But there's this new test thing they want to do where if he completes the program, he could be left out on parole, like a behavioral thing. So he agrees to it, and they take him to this thing. They put him in this cage with this racist KKK member, and I guess he says the N-word too many times because the dude punches him in the face. Crazy K punches the KKK member, and then he's like, you know what? I like you. He said you'll be spared or whatever, because he's talking about the final fight between black and white and stuff. It was just some crazy racist, just off the wall stuff. So they take him out of the cage and they put it on. They're walking him down to the area where he's going to be doing this testing and this experiment. And he's like, I don't appreciate y'all putting me next to that KK Clay motherfucker either. And she was like, it was somebody I needed you to meet. She said, you're scum. She said, you can live or die. She said, I don't care. You can rot in jail or you can be free. She said, but don't test me or something. So they get down to this area. He's like, I ain't getting on that thing. It's like this metal bed. And she's like, yeah, you are. So they put him on it, shave his head, put tubes in him and shit. And they put this thing over his eyes, okay? It shows like violent images of just people getting murdered and shit. And so they start the machine up, start spinning real fast. They're playing this really hard gangster rap song, showing these like real images of black people dying and stuff. It was just horrible. Like the images were horrible. They were mixed in with like acting images, but there was some images of like actual footage of like, murder. So after that's done, they put him in a sensory deprivation tank or whatever, and they leave him in there with his thoughts. So he starts seeing people he killed, I guess hallucinating people he killed. They asked why he did it. He's like, you were always ripping me off, yada yada. And then the little girl came in and said, well, I didn't do anything. I was playing in my room and a bullet from your gun came through the wall. And he's like, well, a bullet don't have no name on it, blah, blah, blah. Basically, he's blaming the world for how he became an asshole dickhead. So the woman's trying to say, why don't you learn from your mistakes? And he's like, nah, I ain't learning shit. The world made me who I am. So he's like, and if you let me out of here, I'll show you this. And she's like, well, nothing's holding you back. So he breaks free from the straps and grabs the girl and grabs one of the assistants and said, I'll break this bitch's neck. And the woman's like, Jerome, it's not time, it's not too late to change. He's like, I don't give a fuck. I don't need to change. And he kept saying, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. But when he's saying that, it pans back out to when he first got shot. I don't know if he was just dreaming all this as he's dying, but he's like, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. He's laying there bleeding out, and these guys are up over him saying, we don't give a fuck neither. They just blast him and kill him. So then they pan out and they show Jerome's body in the casket, and the guys are looking at him, the thugs and shit. And, and then, hold on, I drew a blank. Okay, and then they pulled out their guns and started aiming it at the caretaker. The caretaker was like, what? And he was like, we're tired of playing the games, old man. He said, now that last story, that wasn't funny. And then they went back to that story, and then after they shot Jerome and panned out, and because they were blackened, like it was blackened, like it was hiding the identities, but then after they shot him and they kind of lit it up, it was the three guys in the thing. He said, now you're gonna take us to the shit, blah blah blah. Okay, and then the guy's like, okay, and then he hits him. He's like, okay. So he's like, it's in the basement. So he takes the caretaker, takes him down to the basement and turns on the light, and there's just a bunch of books there. And these guys are getting pissed, you know what I'm saying? So Bulldog, the one guy, pistol whips the caretaker, and the caretaker's like, woo, and then he's like, enough of this, give us the shit now. And then he's like, okay, fine. So he starts walking back, and he opens up the back door, and there's 3 coffins. He's like, here is where the shit is, where else would I hide it, and they all run up to the caskets, and they're like, about fucking time, and they open up the casket, and it's them laying in the fucking casket, and they're freaking out, like, what the fuck, this is crazy, what the fuck's going on? And then the caretaker starts, explaining to them. He's like, when you guys killed Crazy K, a couple weeks later, a couple of his guys came and killed you. He's like, so I'm sorry, you didn't make it. And then they're looking at him like, what the fuck are you talking about? Why if we were dead, we wouldn't be here in this creepy ass funeral home with your crazy ass. And then the guy starts really flipping out, like, he's like, this ain't a funeral home. And they're all looking at him all scared. He's like, and this ain't the Terror Dome neither. And they're looking at him, and they're like, he's freaking, and he's like, welcome to hell. And then he goes, motherfuckers. He does the thing, and then a fucking snake tongue comes out of the fucking gap in his teeth, and and his shirt rips off, and he grows horns, and it's the fucking devil. And then the caskets dip away, and fucking fire starts coming up and just engulfs him in fire, and that's the end of the movie. That has to be probably one of the best endings of a movie I've ever seen. Like, I didn't see it coming, and I loved it so much. So, with all that being said, yeah, this was a longer review because it was a fucking long movie. It was a real long movie. Well, not like a long movie, but to explain everything was long. So I'm glad y'all stuck around with it. I give Tales from the Hood, a solid 9.9 out of 10. It's damn near a perfect movie for me. There are little things that keep it from being a 10, like Spike Lee's movies are very, very, in my opinion, it kind of glorifies racism in a way, because, you know, it's always a black and white thing with his movies. Like, you know, it's always about racism. There's always some sort of racism in his movies. And for me, that kind of kills it for me, because I'm not a racist guy. I love everybody. I don't care. I love everybody. Yeah, so that kind of kills it for me a little bit. Not much, though. Like I said, 9.9 out of 10. But it's just his movies there's a lot of racism. And for me, I think he glorifies racism a little bit, because a lot of his movies are. Even some of his newer shit that comes out is about racism. So, but definitely check out Tales from the Hood. Fucking grade A movie. One of those diamond in the rough. Just love it so much. But with all that being said, Horror Horde, thank you so much. Sorry if this is a little longer than normal, if y'all don't like it. I like to give you guys more quality than quantity. So I'm gonna give you a good in-depth review every time. So with all that being said, this has been your boy Hard Gamer, and as always, don't fear the darkness. Embrace it.